Hello everybody, it's me again, Laura, and today I wanted to talk about how I got my literary agent. It was a long road, a tough road, an interesting road, so let's take a walk down that road, shall we? So let's see. I will start back in 2014 when I decided I wanted to write a young adult book. I had just been reading young adult books for the first time, really, because when I was a teen, young adult wasn't what it was like today or like a few years ago. Um, and I just loved the books. I loved the stories. I loved what you could do in young adult. And I wanted to write one of those stories, and I had stories to tell. I had always been a creative writer, and I studied screenwriting as an undergrad and had always been doing little short scripts, short stories, and things like that, and then decided to tackle writing a book. So I wrote part of a young adult sci-fi novel and discovered a master's program, or a few master's programs were available for how to write young adult books. So I basically applied to all of them, some in the US, one in the UK, and I got into the one in the UK, and I decided to go and work on this sci-fi story. So when I got there, I ended up changing that completely and instead worked on a young adult fantasy that was kind of like a very, very, very loose retelling of Dante's Inferno. And during my course, which lasted a year, I worked on it, wrote it, but didn't finish the entire thing, but wrote, I think we had to turn in, I really can't remember how much we had to turn in. But in any event, I turned in what I had to turn in, eventually finished the book. I think I had maybe a friend or two read it because at the time I didn't have beta readers or critique partners, and I hadn't yet dug into the world of, the online community very much at all. And so I polished it up as good as can be, and then I decided to query. And this is now 2016. I had done my master's program 2015. So 2016, I'm now back in LA and I'm going to query, and I've done a lot of research. I read Query Shark, I went through Absolute Right forums, I believe I signed up for Query Tracker. I was sort of lurking on the edges of a lot of different writing communities, but I wasn't fully participating. So I think I felt like I knew my stuff well enough to give querying a good shot. So I began querying this YA fantasy, and I didn't query very many agents. I believe it was like 10 or 12, and I got, I think, maybe three or four requests for fulls, which didn't end up going anywhere, but it was still very exciting to get feedback that, people wanted to read more just from reading a few pages. And I actually still have an agent who has that book, and that agent has since left agenting, but I checked in with them like once a year, and they were always like, oh, I'm still reading, even when I had decided to pull it just because I was curious, and I thought it was like pretty funny that someone could take that long supposedly to read, and it was obvious, like if they were interested, they would have gotten back to me, but I just kind of wondered how long it would go on, and now that person is no longer agenting, and I never got a response, and that's fine, because like a lot of querying is getting no response, or getting like very little response for a lot of work, and it's just part of the game. So after I got those rejections on the fulls, which was like, it took a few months in some cases. Some agents were speedy, some took a few months. And then I sort of realized that fantasy wasn't right for the market at the time, because that fantasy I had written was a little bit too urban fantasy, which had kind of fallen out of style by that time. And I also was I feel like I may have written it more like with the UK market in mind than a US market, because I had been, living for the year in England, and they have a very different market than the US and very different sensibilities. So I was worried I kind of missed the mark on it. So I just pulled it from querying because I didn't think it would be my best shot at getting an agent. So then I started writing another YA book that was a mystery, like thriller. And at that point, I'd become a little more involved in the online community and some Twitter hashtags, but I was still kind of a lurker, still kind of on the edges. But I heard about pitch wars, obviously, and I heard about author mentor match. So I was like, I'll whip this book into shape to try and enter pitch wars 2016, 2017. I mean, I think I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I may have tried to enter pitch wars with my fantasy book, but I can't quite remember. I mean, I obviously didn't get in, but I think I actually did apply. So anyway, I applied for Pitch Wars with my new mystery book idea. And along the way, I made lots of, friends in the writerly community and got some great CPs, and just, it was a good experience overall because it sort of plopped me more into, the world of young adult writers. And it was a good experience, even though once again I did not get selected for Pitch Wars, and I ended up deciding to apply for Author Mentor Match, which I think ended up being a much better fit because Pitch Wars has the timeline and the pressure crunch and all of that. So it all turned out for the best because I did get into Author Mentor Match, and I got a great mentor who worked with me on revising my book, and we just made it stronger and better. And I think I wouldn't have gotten an agent had I queried with it as it was. She just made it so much stronger. And I loved Author Mentor Match. Even if you don't get in, once again, like, you make so many friends along the way, like, while you're doing all this stuff, like the little events leading up to getting selected and just participating with everyone in Facebook groups or on Twitter. It's totally worth it. So after I finally finished all my revisions and incorporated mentor notes and CP notes, I decided to query. So I jumped into querying, very excited, and like everyone thinks, they all, you think you're gonna, even though you know the stories and like reality is gonna punch you in the face, you somehow think reality is going to like pat you on the head and give you cookies and like throw you a little birthday party, and you're gonna magically get an agent right away. And some people do, and good for them. That was not me. I queried for a long time, in small batches, and overall I had a really great request rate. I had a lot of interest from agents, and a lot of the interest sometimes ended in rejection, and I was getting kind of downtrodden, but I was kept on trucking along. And then I had been waiting on feedback from several agents, and long enough to have decided to nudge them, and one of my nudges resulted in an R&R, a revise and resubmit. And I'd heard mixed things about what happens when you get a revise and resubmit, because you're not automatically going to be picked up by that agent if you implement their suggestions, and you have to decide if you like their suggestions and if you think that'll make the book better. But I actually thought it was kind of cool because in a way it was like auditioning for the agent in a more personal way, because you're taking their notes as though like they were really your agent. Like, if you were my agent and you read my book and you gave me this feedback, is this the kind of feedback I'm looking for? Is this the style I'm looking for? And do I agree with your suggestions? Like, are our minds in alignment? So I was actually, though, in such a little pit over like just the whole querying process. When I got the revise and resubmit, I thought it was rejection, even though it very clearly was like, I welcome you to basically like make these changes and submit again. And like my friends and boyfriend had to be like, no, this is a really good thing, when I was ready to like sort of, give up on that particular agent, which would have been very foolish. And I was like, oh yeah, thanks a lot, brain. That was not what that email was saying. It was saying revise and resubmit. It was just like a very funny thing. So, if ever in doubt, get a second opinion, because sometimes your brain is going a little haywire and it needs a little help. So I actually really loved the suggestions, and I totally saw like the weaknesses where the agent pointed out weaknesses, and I saw the strengths where they pointed them out. And it wasn't an extensive set of notes, but it was very focused fixes, and I was like, I can do these revisions, I will do these revisions, and I'm gonna make this happen. So then I let other agents who still had my materials know that I had gotten a revise and resubmit, and asked if they wanted to wait. I could send them the new version when it was ready, and everyone I had submitted to said yes, of course, that's fine. So I then got down to business. I'm looking back at my emails for the timeline, and I queried my agent August 2018, then I got a full request the same day. My agent's very speedy with responses, so I knew I liked that. So I sent the full that same day, and then I gave a nudge in October, and then I got the revise and resubmit in November. This is all 2018. And then I sent back the changes February 2019. And then I got an offer in March. I actually got an email on a Sunday, and I was like kind of, going about my Sunday, and I saw an email being like, are you available for a call today? And I was like, on a Sunday? what is this? Is this what I think it is? And it was what I thought it was. And we talked, and it was just so nice to have someone, like, to have an agent tell you everything they love about your book. And we talked, and it seemed like a great fit, and it was wonderful. And so, like, once we got off the call, I was like, I'll give the other agents, I think I gave 2 weeks as the standard, like a week or 2 weeks. So I said, I'd get back to him in 2 weeks and let him know. So then I let all the other agents know that I had an offer, and then I got a couple more offers. And I talked to agents on the phone, and it was actually, like, the fun part, but also the difficult part, because you talk to people who have great ideas and different ideas about your book and about your career, and it's different personalities. And ultimately, I went with the original offering agent, Dr. Uwe Stender, because he gave me the original notes that made the book stronger than ever. And he just had a personality that really meshed with mine, and our vision for the story really fell in line. And I just liked sort of his style and what I'd heard about him and talked to his other clients, and everything I got was great. And the other agents who offered had strengths and things that really appealed to me, but at the end of the day, Uwe was the one who I feel like saw the diamond in the rough, and he's really believed in the story, believed in me. That was that. I let him know a couple weeks later that he was the one, and that is the story of how I got my literary agent. Hopefully your perfect agent is out there. And that's the other thing. I didn't really believe in dream agents. I knew, like, the power players and all that. But, like, the dream agent is the one who loves your project and believes in you and believes in your continued relationship together, growing and blooming and all that fun stuff. So yeah, and I continue to really love my agent. I think he gives great notes, great feedback. He is a very speedy responder, so if ever I have a concern or a question, I rarely have to wait more than a day or two for a response. And yeah, it's going great, and I'm excited to keep writing books and working with him. And that is that. I hope that this was helpful. I will talk to you next time. Bye.